Hi, Abby. Hello. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Vinayak. Yeah. It is expected that Dr. Rajendra Sinde to
Yes,
be.
I'm here, Dr. Vinayak.
Okay, you are there, Saroj.
Yes, I'm very much in the room.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Hello,
Just
hello
yeah,
to President.
yeah, yeah. So thank you. Thank you. Hello.
I think I have taken a seat somewhere, but not surely, unless Udita company.
Where is this?
Thank you very much. I hope that I'm audible enough. Thank you, President. And thank you, President, for this excellent introduction, setting the scene and the tone for this first ever virtual COP, taking place just about a month from the real CAP that will happen in Belém, in Brazil, who represents such a committed, dedicated country and resolved to make sure that it leaves behind a legacy. It is not just yet another COP, but it resolves to make sure that we have a heritage to follow, heritage to preserve, and heritage to sustain. My young distinguished delegates, colleagues, observers, other youth representatives, and also some of my colleagues. I'm extremely proud to introduce this transformative proposal for university determined contributions. And this has not come out of just few weeks of consultation, but it is a few years of trying at the ground level. It is definitely a bottom-up proposal. It has not come down, it is not from top down. It is a definite global movement to empower universities and higher education institutions to declare and deliver on commitments, on climate commitments. They do mirror the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Climate Agreement, but they not necessarily mimic it. I don't want to be sarcastic about it. I'm realistic. But if you mimic the NDCs, the scenario is rather gloomy. In the morning, we heard the former Deputy Executive Secretary of UNFCCC that we are under not a simple threat, but we are in an existential threat. 10 years back, we talked about keeping the temperature to 1.5, and if not possible, at least 2 degrees centigrade. The rise in temperature has to be limited to that. By 2030, we have to get it half emission reduction, and by 2050, we have to achieve that. The striking realization is the 1.5 degrees centigrade limit is already getting breached. So I don't want to say anything more than that. So we are not definitely mimicking it, but we are mirroring it to make sure that it goes to the completion in a sense that we want it to do. This initiative is developed under the mentorship of Ove Sarmad, who is our mentor, with Eric. Yes, okay. Yes,
Yes, Shweta,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you. Perhaps they are not.
We can hear you. We
I can hear you. We can hear you. Please go on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, President. It has been mentored. It has come as a collective decision. It is mentored by Oves Sarmad, whom I said just now is a former Deputy Executive Secretary of UNFCCC, having more than 30 years of working in a very effective programs of United Nations. And then Eric Solem, who is a former Environment Minister of Norway and former Under Secretary General of United Nations. And then Prakash Javadekar, who is a former Minister of Environment for India, and Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, who is India's computer pioneering man. But it is not just the mentors who have come and collectively advise this and try to test us, but we have tested it with 125 of 550 universities that are part of the network of universities. And the singular aim of that network is to make the university campus net zero. The aim is not to hold the conferences, aim is not to hold seminars, debates. Aim is to make your campus net zero by giving a commitment of UDC, University Determined Contribution. And number of these 125 universities have given us in writing that they want to do it, which came as a surprise to us, because they have understood the seriousness, the crisis situation, that there has to be what is called as in today's terminology, a ceasefire with the war with the nature. They understood it and they said, we are ready to do it. So they proposed that universities campus should become a living laboratory for net zero. They suggested that youth should be now change makers because the world leaders are going slow, neglecting it, or even criticizing it. And youth are the one who can bridge the ambitious gaps that is remaining over there. And I'm thankful to the president who suggested that this proposal gets aligned with Brazil's struggle to make COP30 a legacy. And they have identified 3 I's, that is inclusion, innovation, and implementation. And the president correctly said how the youth takes part in each one of them, and I won't repeat it. So the key elements of this proposal, that there will be pledge, that this will be our university determined contributions. There will be experiential learning and skilling under the guidance of faculty and the external guides or the experts working on a climate program from World Bank, UNDP, UNEP, Ministry of Power of various countries, etc., etc. And then there is a inclusion and global cooperation. This is a very important part of the whole thing. This network promotes the learning by doing, but at the same time, learning by consultation with the other universities, understanding their successes and their failures. And more importantly, they also start innovating, creating, co-creating, reimagining the technology gaps. And the youth today, particularly from the universities, are singularly placed for reimagining the future. So it will have a multi-stakeholder engagement. It will have alignment with the COP30 statements, of which Brazil is trying hard. And then there is a call for action. At the end, I would like to just propose, or I want to emphasize rather, that by making the university campus net zero, frankly, we are not going to contribute in a major way to reduce the emissions. In a significant way, it will reduce the emission, but not a significant way, because there are about 50,000 universities and their campuses, whereas we have a huge industries and businesses and the government set up, and there are farmers who also contribute to the climate change, but they also have the solutions for the climate. What the proposal does is bring the youth together, point number one. Point number two, it provides the skilled human capital to the country, to the respective country, for achieving net zero. Because it is my observation, and I've worked for one of the singularly successful program of Montreal Protocol, that yes, there is a financial gap. There is a gap for finance, gap for technology, gap for policies, but nobody looks at the gap for skilled human capital. And that's what this particular UDC framework is going to do. So I definitely look forward to comments from you, the views from the president and the experts on this, in order to make sure how we can go ahead. It is just a proposal which need to be shaped into the framework and that put into practice. And I want to tell you one thing, that we can keep on doing all this structure and the framework, but there are universities I've seen who are not going to wait for your framework. They are not going to wait for your even decisions. They are just going to go ahead and do it. Only thing what we are doing here under the Youngo is giving him some kind of a shape and molding for a concerted efforts to get the youth so that they become inclusive. The small island countries, universities, the universities in the remote African countries, and the universities in some of the forest areas in Amazon, I think they will come together. We are trying to see the inclusiveness. Mr. President, I stop here. And if there are any questions, I'm sure not only me, but there are others in the audience who will be able to address it. And we really have to get going on this job, knowing what situation is there today in a climate change. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Youngo and their great organizing ability for giving this opportunity. Thank you. Yes. Mhm. Yes. So the implementation process, which already been set in motion and which universities have, I won't say liked it, but have accepted, is the fast track mechanism, is simply form what is called as a core group, which is called as a core group for net zero in a campus. Here it is again mirroring the process. Every country, either in a Ministry of Ecology or Ministry of Environment, there is a core committee. Here we are calling it a core group. That committee probably meets every week, every month, every year, every 5 years once, depending on the action they want to take. So the first step is forming a core group and knowing that any core group will be dynamic in a sense that some members will be there, they will be going and coming. But then the focal point in university would ensure that if somebody is leaving the university, let's say, then another fresh one mind is recruited for that. They get going on finding what is called as a net zero baseline data. What is the carbon footprint of your campus as of today? And we have found, and some of the participants here who are members of SCCN possibly will be able to tell that yes, that was one of the easy part of doing it, mainly for scope 1 and scope 2. Scope 3 emissions, bit difficult, but a number of students are coming forward to me saying that we can do for scope 3, which many industries are not able to do. The next step is to find a roadmap for net zero. And that roadmap will have a timeline. And that roadmap would be what is called as, can be generated through the digital tools. You feed in the data, and we have developed that digital tool. You feed in the data, and then the digital tool tells us, oh, this is one of the easiest things that you can do. Go ahead, start reducing. Well, you may agree or you may not agree with that tool. You say, no, I will take a difficult one first and keep the easy one later. And then you start monitoring it, not manually, but by using certain sensors, AI technology, Internet of Things, blockchain, and this is being done. I'm not just rattling out the names. This is being done. And probably some of those participants here may say that yes, they are doing it. And they who are the members of the SCCN or even outside the members of SCCN. Because this is not a monopoly of SCCN. It is coming out. It is coming out in the open. And then if there are some residual emissions still remaining after taking all actions, you go for what is called as a carbon trading, carbon management, carbon capture and storage. And those are the emerging technologies we are doing it. So that is a number simple steps. Now, what we want to do it at the global level, probably the organization like Yango can constitute what is called as a monitoring framework. And that monitoring, you have to depend on digital measurements rather than personal visits. Because personal visits and collecting data may be, today there is a term called as a greenwashing going on. The digital technology doesn't lie unless you hack it. I mean, I don't have to tell young people on that. But we collect that data, we rank the universities, try to create a competition. And we know the ranking of universities today is a big measurement and decision making for the students and the parents of the students to get into the admission. And if you introduce the net zero roadmaps, net zero progress in that ranking system in a very specific way, not in general way, then probably Yango, along with Smart Campus Cloud Network of my organization, Green Tech Foundation, we will have a means to tell world that yes, this can be done. And the moment we give it to the country heads, the world leaders, I'm expecting, to use a little loose word, that they probably will be embarrassed that a campus can do it and we can't do it in the country. Of course, somebody will say country is a huge one, campus is a small thing. But then everything starts with a pilot. Everything starts with a small experiment. And the experiment has proved yes. So from country, campus, from campus to community, community to the country. And I think that chain will be there. And I hope Yungo will take a lead in this. And we are here to help you, or even we can take a lead in it. You will help us in case you have many other agenda items, and we can do it. I don't know whether I answer your question correctly.
Thank you so much, Saikat, Mr. President. And thank you, Dr. Shende, for this very insightful talk on this. I would like to ask, though, how do you think the UDC framework ensures that universities in the global south, but also in the global north, um, oh, with the resources they have. In the south, they have fewer resources, therefore, they need to push even more. How could they adequately be supported so they can transition to net zero? And how the global north can address that their emissions are higher and therefore they need to reduce their activities and reach this. Thank you so much. I'm representing, of course, younger, different working groups, but I am also working with the Ludwig Maximilians Universität. And previously, my master thesis was on measuring the impact of the laboratories, doing a laboratory carbon footprint assessment at the Technical University of Munich. So, yeah, the researchers are responsible for their carbon footprint also while they're doing research for sustainability, I believe. So I would like to know what Mr. Shende thinks about it. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Uh, hi, Mr. Saikit, President, and hello, Rajendra sir. This is Sita from Rahagiri Foundation. So that's a wonderful thought to bring up UDCs, concentrating the knowledge and the awareness at university level itself with the students. Um, with the recent advancements, what are happening all around in terms of carbon credits and carbon credit trading mechanisms as well. You were also mentioning that carbon trading mechanism also can be explored in terms of these UDCs, right, sir? So there are already few rating systems in India and also around the world, which talks about net zero campuses. I really wanted to understand how different is this UDC in terms of the existing net zero campus ratings already with various organizations, in some places which are voluntary and in some places which are mandatory, uh, either from the national or the subnational governments. That is first question. And the second question is, um, can this be linked or related to the existing ranking of the universities, which we already have in India, which is NIRF ranking? And as you were mentioning that, yes, there are few other rankings which rate these universities, but if we could bring this aspect also into NIRF ranking, that would actually give a boost to the whole process and its intent. That's the second thing. And the third thing is more appropriate and more needed is how can we possibly connect this UDC's capacities with the scholarships that the students of the universities can possibly have, which is more important because it should definitely have some sort of a quantified outcome that could help the scholars or the students of the university, making it more sense and giving them more encouragement in terms of being true to the intention of UDC. Um, so this is just a thought that I could come across. I would really love to hear from your end, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, I think these are the very, very relevant questions, and I'm thankful to them for bringing it up. Um, of course, I won't say that this is the exact answer to each of these questions, but I will try to do my best based on my experience with so many number of universities. What do they think about it? And I really feel that some of the universities who probably are participating are can also supplement my response. So first thing is about Melissa. Uh, she talked about uh, north-south uh, requirements of resources, even for the universities, in order to make sure that they also contribute to uh, net zero things. And if they take the commitment, would that commitment to take into account the resource requirements also? Uh, I think this is a question which exactly mirrors with what is going on in a COPS now. Uh, and the simple thing is what is called as a common but differentiated responsibility. And I've been hearing it since 1992. And and in the Montreal Protocol, we had the same thing. Struggled a lot. It all depends on a world leader's understanding and leadership, ready to help our fellow colleagues, etc., etc. But here, uh, Melissa, am I producing you? Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Melissa? Right. Luckily for us, any action on net zero, whether it is a energy efficiency, whether it is a renewable energy, whether it is a transport, or whether it is going for a vegetarian food, just to add some joke into it, which will reduce the emission in a food in a canteen in a universities. Each one of them have long-term saving potential. It may not have saving immediately. For example, if you put a solar energy, it is a capex, it has a capital cost. But over the years, and I know some of the universities who have calculated starting with 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, they are able to get that money back. So there is a financial modeling which has come up, which didn't exist in case of Montreal Protocol, where we were trying to phase out the chemicals. And there was no economic advantage of eliminating them. Here, eliminating carbon dioxide from the fossil fuel is an economic advantage. I don't want to repeat it, but from the year 2000, the solar panel cost or even a solar electricity cost has come down by 90%. No cost in the world has come down by 90% up till now. And that is what is happening. So this financial model that we need to consider it, that is number one. Number two, my response is that apart from that, you will require a coordination between South and North for the technologies which we have not yet found. Typical example is space solar panels. See, one of the disadvantages is when there is a night, there is no sun, there is no solar electricity. So we have to look at a storage. But if you have a space solar, which is a new technology coming up, we don't require a solar storage. We can get it because the sun doesn't rest on all over the globe at a time. So those are the kind of technologies which we can come. And this particular network proposal of UDC, knowing that we have committed to it, they are able to what is called as dedicated. They have a possibility of dedicated innovations, and they can do it. We have seen in a hackathon the youth power, and they are able to do that within a given time. Well, I may be giving a talk which encourages it and probably neglect some of the practical difficulties, but I'm sure as we go along, Melissa, you'll be able to find it out how we can cooperate together, the global North and South, and probably G20 is an example. The BRICS is example. Brazil, you all know that. We have a South as well as North there. And I think we will be able to find it out. So that is Melissa's thing. And I would like to know if there is anything further. As far as Sita from India is concerned, yes, if you look at the time ranking, and I'm quite involved in it and I will tell you why. In time ranking,
Ada Afrika juga tu datang tu.
okay, all right. So some of the ranking system does take care of net zero. But remember one thing, that net zero is based on what universities tell time for ranking, not verified one. That's number one. Number two is, even in India, NIRF, that National Institutional Ranking Framework, I don't want to disclose it, but I'm the one of the committee members of that to see that how we can give a criteria more on sustainability. And Indian government is moving towards that. And you are right that if at all we put net zero, decarbonization, carbon neutrality as one of the things, I think things will happen faster. There is no doubt about it. But as you know, Indian universities or any universities, let's say in Africa, and
Indian
many
University. Indian.
Excuse me. Could you please mute yourself? The session is going on. Cycle, could you please mute them?
Ahmad, reach 1 o'clock. Please mute your mic. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a possibility of putting that ranking system as we go along, so as not to rock the boat. We can go along and slowly introduce this, and this will be definitely accelerating tools for all the universities in the world. And this is where the framework implementation comes in a picture, that it needs to have a policy push, incentive push, and it is really going to help. I don't want to go in detail, but in some of the Chinese universities, there are some positive things which are being done, not only ranking of the universities, but also giving incentive to the students to change their behavioral pattern. I think that answers the question. And I talked about incentives, Mr. President. I think the incentives related to scholarships, and I think that will be, according to me, would be easily coming, because there are businesses who are interested in putting their research, which they cannot do it themselves, in the universities, and they will probably not only give the grants, but even the scholarships to the universities. And in some of the countries, the university students, even if they are small one, they have been given an opportunity to work on a space with NASA, with space agencies in various countries. And I think the same thing probably will happen in case of net zero. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Dr. Vinayak from Dayanand Sagar University, Bangalore. Very comprehensively covered by Dr. Sende. There is nothing add to that. Just to add as a formality and with the permission of President Mr. Saket Das. So it's a very holistic to say that we are going for net zero and carbon neutrality and other things. In this respect, ENGO is doing started an initiative. Hopefully, it will continue with that. This is a great initiative. What I would like to say. Apart from that, there are so many aspects into this. This is a very complex thing. The thermodynamics says that disorder is required to produce certain order. So as long as we are using certain form of energy in orderly form, obviously there is going to be disorder. But how to neutralize this? This is very, very important. As far as the basic principles of thermodynamics is concerned, we cannot violate the principles of thermodynamics, and the energy requirement is very intense. It is not possible that for a moment also we cannot stop using our mobiles. That is the intense energy intense society where we are living in. Not possible that to go back to Stone Age and start living like the early people who stayed. So it is not possible in this context. Of course, universities can play a very big role in neutralizing the carbon and spreading the awareness to the communities also. That is very, very important. As universities are multi-ethnic, that is very, very important. And youth have the potential. They have greater potential to lead this battle to a quite a longer extent. This is very, very important. And later when they start working also at their workplaces also, if they have this awareness, then they definitely implement this. This is the importance of this particular initiative. And as far as the questions from the eminent audience are concerned, the first one, global north and south, how resources are managed and other thing. Of course, the requirement is very simple that we have to go for a net carbon zero. That is our prime responsibility. And based upon the requirement, global north, the requirement may be different. Global south, the requirement may be different. We have to chalk out what is the requirement from global north and what is the requirement from global south. And we have to take a step forward. That is very, very important. So once we take this step forward, then only we can understand that how that step what we have taken is actually going to help us. This is very, very important. And thorough, what I can say, brainstorming is required in this case. And we have to move forward. That is no doubt about that. And as far as Ms. Sita is concerned, carbon credit trading and other things are very, very important. We have to create awareness in a university system. And this plays a very important role in getting placements also in this particular category. And apart from that, we have to embed these requirements in the curriculum. That is very important, irrespective of the program what they are studying. If these things are incorporated in this curriculum, and when Dr. Shinde was there in our campus, some of our students raised a question that only introducing a theory type of a course will not serve the purpose. So they want a practical based curriculum or a course that definitely helps them and make them potential to implement these strategies when they come out of the campus. And apart from that, various initiatives like greener way of generating the power, and energy audit of the utilities, and then waste management. Waste management, we say, and we take the waste out and burn using a crude oil. What the purpose it serves, in an incinerator, I don't know. So these are all the things one has to think very, clearly. And we go to the shopping malls, and we go to, so many multiplexes and complexes. We use the hot air to dry our hand also. Like, whenever we go to washroom, we keep our hand. One has to be very holistic. Doing that, how we are, destroying the energy potential of that particular exergy potential of that energy. So this message has to go to all the stakeholders of the university. It doesn't mean that don't do that. And apart from that, using the lift, staircases, and lighting. When you come out of the room, you have to switch off the lights and other utilities, electric utilities. These behavioral changes are also very important as far as this particular initiative and moving forward is concerned. Quickly, I will finish. And as Sita Ma'am was telling, these things have to be embedded in ranking accreditations. Of course, it is there, but in my view, this has become a formality just to show that some courses who are having a, what I can say, affinity to for these kind of, requirements. It has become a namesake, and we have to quantify, we have to measure them. A quantitative framework is very much required as far as accreditation bodies are also concerned. Maybe global accreditations like Washington Accord and other things are also. So we should have a definite framework wherein it says that it is quantified in this way. If it is quantified to this level, then it should be credited to this level. That should be a clear say. And that way, the governing body of these accreditation councils should consider this as the one of the most important requirement, a very primitive requirement, and they have to take it forward. And as far as crediting the people who have done certain courses, certain programs under this category, they can be awarded with a minor degree. Definitely, that is going to help them on a longer run. This is from my side, and I would like to thank the eminent panel and Engo for providing me this opportunity. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, whatever losses are incorporated should be matched with the economy as well as society. That is very important. You're right. Yes.
Yes, I'm Elise from the French Young Greens, the youth organization of the Green Party in France. I was wondering, a lot of what you've mentioned through coordinating organization, university, and leading youth negotiations. Um, S- Sorry. Yeah, a lot of these, I feel that they might have obstacles in the sense that nation states at the moment are going back to very much isolationism and like very much realist mindsets in a way that things like education and social welfare are getting cut and cut, and then there's more nations spent on defense or maybe technology, but not in a way that might serve the people, more in a way of like having prestigious, like the latest AI tools, this kind of things. So, how would you advise youth activists to argue for more a balanced investments in society that can lead, because these green policies, they can only be led if we have a good quality of education everywhere, if we have a good quality of social welfare, if the quality of life is good. I think we can push more for better balance and everything. But how do we argue for that when a lot of the competitive mindset that we see is so much like closed on itself, and there's very little road for cooperation and discussion and actual like change in multiple spaces, and not just realism and hard power. Thank you.
You want me to answer that immediately or after getting all questions? Okay, right, right, right. So what, President, thank you very much for that opportunity. This is what French young Greens have asked me is it's a quite a tricky question, and I don't think I have a correct answer on that. In fact, one of the things, I'm a retired person from United Nations, and one of the advantages I have in working with the young people is to learn more and more. When you talk about the disadvantages of AI and the competitiveness and selecting optimum solution, I really feel that you are the one who will give us the solutions for it. And that's why it is it's a sort of a consultative process. And other day I met in Singapore one Chinese student, and he told me that Dr. Shinde, what happens is, do you know that with every click on a keyboard, you carbonize the world? And I I said, yeah, I heard something like that. But he says, this is true. And he says that today the total emission from the use of AI or any digital technology is about 1.5 to 2%. And immediately IEA, the International Energy Agency, comes out with a projection that by 2030, 5 years from now, it will become 15%. And then there is another one, probably some European agency comes by the time 2050 comes, the AI technologies will be contributing to nearly 50% of the emissions. Now, look, we don't have solution for that today, but I'm sure young people like you will be able to optimize it. And here again, the behavior comes in a picture.
And that on that point, I just want to say something, because what you said is very interesting. And I do believe that in the use of technology and the use of something that produces pollution, we should not like guilt individuals for those actions, because the choice that we have here is to either use the tools that we have in the capitalist system, or get behind, get marginalized, and not participate in society. So it's not really a choice that everyone has to use those tools and technology and pollute. So I do think the responsible ones should be the companies who go around green regulations, who produce for maximum profit and underpay their workers, who outsource to countries where there's lower border regulation. And I do think the companies and corporations should be held accountable, and not the people using keyboards and AI because they have no real choice. Yeah, just my point. Thank you so much. Thank you for your answer also. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and my name is Elise. I forgot to say my name. Elise goes well.
Yeah, Ellis, right? Yeah. So look, I just want to say that I cannot agree more. You hit on the point. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Hello, Mr. Saikar, Dr. Shende, and everyone present. My name is Maria Gracia. I have the privilege to be part of the SCCN Peru Hub. I'm also a student at PUCP, Pontifical Catholic University of Peru. And as members of SCCN, we support UDCs on the mission to reach net zero global planet. As students, we already have formed our core group and are starting action by informing our peers on the climate crisis subject and sustainability and net zero campus, but also mindset. And we look forward to connect with students from different universities in my country, but other universities around the world, and to take the path into net zero movement and mentality. And just wanted to comment on that and make a call for other universities to join the movement and look for a better future for all of us and for future generations as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakat. We have some points as the representative of Young Youth Observers. So first, I think I would like to give the floor to Veronica.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. I'm here basically on European Young Engineers capacity, and I just would like a bit more clarification before we go for the voting. And you mentioned you have like 460 plus universities as part of your network, and you have your goals, and you mentioned about the incentives and the policy push and the student behavior pattern. But I would like to understand better, how do you see the UDC's implementation and being adopted under the UNFCCC process as helping you to achieve that? What's going to change in the process for you? Is it that you need more top-down support, or because at least from the engineering side, I do think it's already very well incorporated in the modules and in the teaching styles and methodologies. Sustainability is at the core, or the net zero, climate change. So I just would like to understand a bit more what's going to change, or what's the impact you would expect if this is adopted. Thank you.
Next, I think Udit can ask his point, and then I will try to summarize.
Okay, thank you, Gabby, for sharing the opportunity. So my question to Dr. Sande will be on similar lines to Veronica. So my question is, if the UDC framework is adopted, for example, I am a country in Ecuador, or let's say I am a country in Africa, we adopt the UDC framework as a vice chancellor of a university. So after that, what type of commitments I have to give, how the process will be followed after I ratify this agreement and after I commit to net zero. So what will be the process of this UDC framework in my university that I have to adopt after forming a core group, which you said in your earlier part of the speech. So I just want to know about the mandate and the operating framework of this UDC. Thank you.
Yes, and finally, I would like to say that we have all, I think, raised up questions with like the same idea in mind, which is we want to wonder about the point of urgency and the point of accountability of this voting of this particular policy proposal, the urgency of why this needs to be implemented into UNFCCC and the accountability mechanism. And also, we would like some assurances that this is not going to be just a symbolic treaty, that in the end, if this is approved, it will have some form of legal binding, that it will actually lead to real action and real change. And on that note, I would also like to add to our points of accountability, urgency, and mechanism requirements. I would like to add that there is also a question from our expert observer who is not able to be here. It is Mr. Oves, the former part of the Secretariat of UNFCCC and IOM. Mr. Oves wonders, so the movement of UDC is growing and only expanding, and we are even trying to put this forward into the COP30 agenda and into official part of the UNFCCC process. So Mr. Oves asks, how far and how fast can we go? Can we actually guarantee that this will be a sustainable long-term mechanism for real changes, starting with youth and university-led innovation and action? Or what are other types of guarantees that this will, again, go further and further more? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Well, I can only give some options, but I'm sure the real answer will be coming from Youngo and by way of deliberations. And that deliberation should not continue for next 10 years, but I think should be finished by 10 weeks time. And these are not something which is what you call it, trying to find out where exactly on the moon we should land. I think it is something very simple to do it. And I can give some of the examples for that. So knowing that what I heard from Veronica is what are the impacts and how do we measure that impact? Well, the impact, of course, in a very limited way, is to what extent the net zero has been achieved. That's number one. But that would become sort of an global stock take, which has become a sort of an in a very lighter mood. We don't know. Countries are submitting some data, and then we are assuming it is right, and then taking a global stock take and giving some reports on that. I think here it will be more serious. It will be more serious not only in terms of how much you are reduce the emissions, but what methods you are using, how you are reduce the emissions. Is there any innovative or creative way? And those kind of success indicators. So success is not only reducing the emission, success is how you have done it. What creativity you have used, which the business didn't know it, and you did it. So business can borrow it from you. Or you can start your own startup. You can say that, okay, earlier it was being done like this, I'm doing it like this. Now, I'm going to make a huge difference into it. So those are the success indicators that we need to do. And I feel that Youngo, I would like to interact more with the Youngo, some typical people, as well as others who are not part of the Youngo to get what kind of success indicators should be there for impact. The impact matrix should be driven by the success indicators and not by just simple numbers. So that is just something quick. And for the lack of time, I also want to go that to Udit, who talked about what kind of process we can set up in the universities. And my answer to that would be flexible. I think once you tell that this curriculum has to be completed, the university does that job. Of course, you can keep a watch whether you are giving a face certificate of first class, second class, or grades or something. But But I think universities understand their responsibilities. They are becoming more and more social, economical, and environmental responsibility, knowing what they are doing about the ESG and number of reports on sustainability, investment, and all that. So I think we can consult universities to have their own way, and let's not be very rigid on that. What process that should be. That's number two. And what OS was telling is that the urgencies and fast track, and that's where I come to the Gabby. I come to Gabby's questions. Yes, all our ways of providing incentives, providing process, providing success indicators should ultimately contribute to the urgency. And that urgency is to achieve. See, many people nowadays say that net zero is not able to, we are not able to achieve it. It is not possible. And that is because even if you take the big industry, let's say you take Tesla or you take a Google, and they do not have any clue how to find out the scope 3 emissions. They may be able to calculate it on a paper, but they don't know how to digitally measure it. And that's why the new technologies are getting emerged on. And as I was telling in the morning, there is also, many of you might have heard, scope 4 emission, that the emission which could have been avoided, but you're still using it. So there are number of things. And I feel that the answer to the Gabby's question is, Gabby, I think we need to keep the urgency in mind, but at the same time, the youth empowerment and what innovation they can do and present it to the business. That should be our objective. I don't know, I may be now coming to the typical UN language and talking in a very gross way, but that may be because I don't know the precise answer. Thank you.
Is this a voice voting or how it goes? Yeah.
Or we can put a emoji as voting.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I have put. Yeah, please. Actually, this UDC as well as net zero should converge at a point, and from there it should take a jump. That is very, very important because I don't know to what extent they have departed at present, but they should converge at a point so that it leads to some meaningful conclusion. This is what I can say. Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, excuse me. SCCN should also be in final agreement, please. Yes.
President, I have a quick feedback. I think well done. And I think the participation, thinking, as well as suggestions were beyond my imagination. I just wanted to say that please link this UDC initiative to the Smart Campus Cloud Network initiative, based on which we have arrived at UDC. And the point is, they who had already taken a lead in going for net zero, they will be properly acknowledged that yes, their experience has counted. Of course, they have not become net zero as such, but they have taken an initiative to see that okay, this is the way we want to go. So that is my only suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Very good.
Very well done.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much to all the students, faculty, and president and Yungo team. Thank you.
Thank you. I take your leave.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
We also facilitate technology development and we foster global standard to I was citing I was quoting ISO, but also there are a serious and number of processes that we encourage to build standards, to build harmonization of standards, and of course we develop green lead market and create demand for decarbonized products. All of these can be basically summarized in 4 steps. So we develop enabling environments through our standards, roadmap, frameworks, and market. We focus on technical and financial readiness through scouting of technology, financial schemes, demanding schemes, and demand signals from governments. We, of course, foster international partnership and convening to shape an effective partnership will look like. And all of this will help us scaling up the net zeros for industry. We basically offer different service packages, let's call it like that, and in different pillars. I'm gonna quote a couple of them. So what we do, it's generic, let's say, in industry decarbonization support. And how do we do that? Basically, we do with one pillar, for instance, the net zero partnership for industrial decarbonization, which basically it has born as a NDC guidebook, and to advocate for make sure that in countries and in countries
concepts of energy security, development, industrialization, and decarbonization. And, I've done financing presentations for the last 15 or so years, and energy security is one of those that, was always on the list of things about benefits of nuclear that no one really had any interest in talking about. And since February 2022, at the start of the war in Ukraine, energy security has become a much bigger topic of conversation for people. But when we look at the global South, countries are focusing on development. When we look at the global South and the rest of the world, you think about industrialization. And when you throw in decarbonization, how we power growth, how we power industrial output is critical when we think about climate change, when we think about development. And, one of the unfortunate lessons is that no leader is going to turn off the electricity and say, well, sorry, it's not clean, so you'll have to deal with not having electricity today. Because, in modern society, electricity and water are just fundamental. They're critical infrastructure. You flip on the light switch, you expect the electricity to go on. You turn the spigot, clean water is supposed to come out. And I know that's not a true statement for large portions of the world, but we're thinking about an advanced economy and what most countries aspire to. That's the goal. And so, we think about how this needs to be done, and in the financing context, I think we tend to see nuclear energy as a black box that produces electricity that goes on the grid. But when you think of it in terms of critical infrastructure, you start to think of it a little bit differently and how you support that. Similarly, we have to recognize that the world is a very complicated place, and the relationships you build in the nuclear sector are multi-decade, perhaps even 100-year relationships. The Gen 2 fleet in the United States was licensed for 40 years. It's running for 80. The Gen 3 fleet and beyond should get licensed for 60 and maybe run for 100. And so the relationship between the exporting country and the host country becomes very important, not just for financing, but there are geopolitical considerations that factor into all of this. The other thing that we have to think about when we're deciding how we use limited financial resources, the role of government is critical. It may be different depending on the country that you're in, but government support is critical to building nuclear energy. And when you think of most governments being financially constrained and everybody competing for resources, one of the important things to understand with nuclear is the economic impact. So, when you do a project at the project level, you do financial modeling, you decide, is there a good rate of return on the project? And that drives whether you build it or not. But there's a whole series of benefits that nuclear creates, from decarbonization to job creation to tax revenue to the secondary economic impact of the thing, to clean air, all these things that you don't put a number in a financial model for, yet are very important, especially for governments, to consider whether or not they should support the project. So being able to articulate that economic impact of the project, especially to a government audience, is very important, because it's hard to quantify these benefits at the project level. Arguably, they don't matter at the project level in making an investment decision, but they can become very important for society, and thus for the government or for the ratepayers or the taxpayers who are looking to decide whether or not they should support a project. So these are all the things that are factoring into how we get these projects developed, delivered, and financed. And part of it is simply just creating a viable project and recognizing why nuclear projects are more challenged, recognizing why it's tough to finance nuclear. And we see that there have been dramatic changes over the last few years. I think we're beyond the point of the debate of whether should we have or shouldn't we have nuclear. There's still some people that are always going to hate nuclear energy, and you're never going to convince them otherwise. But I think most people recognize that nuclear has to have a place in the decarbonization and clean growth strategies that are needed for the world. It's not the only solution. Renewables have to be part of it, Supporting one doesn't mean that you dislike the other, but all of these things have to be, you know, utilized in order to achieve the goals we want. And just one example of the dramatic changes, you look at just in 2024, the impact of data centers and artificial intelligence. In the United States, just as an example, our energy demand growth was relatively flat for a very long time. And now all of a sudden it's gone kind of vertical. And one of the big market signals is that the hyperscalers, the Googles, the Amazons, the Metas, companies that are publicly traded, that are globally recognized, that are for young people, companies that are trend setting that you want to work for, they came out and said we need clean baseload energy. And when you use those words together, you don't even need to say nuclear. It's really a combination of factors that gets you to nuclear being a solution, because hydro has challenges. That's the only other real baseload solution. And from a clean perspective, and now there's environmental issues relating to the development of hydro projects, it's relatively built out and it's not an option for a lot of people. So these are the considerations that we have to think of. And then, as was mentioned in Brianna's presentation, we've had nuclear green bonds where, these bonds have been issued by utilities. They've been rated green by independent rating agencies, and they've been oversubscribed. When Bruce Power and OPG and did their initial green bond issuances, they were oversubscribed by 6x. So it shows that there is investor interest for the combination of nuclear and clean or green. And then I'll just finish with a recognition that multilaterally, we see the World Bank has finally changed its policy toward nuclear. Not maybe as broadly as we would have hoped, but it's a start, and it sends a powerful message in working together with the IAEA, which is another powerful message. So that's moving things in a direction. And I would submit in a top environment that looking at the loss and damage fund, looking at the just energy transition plans at the country level, that nuclear is incorporated into that, especially, everybody says, oh, well, we have limited funds, but some of those funds, especially during the development stage of a project, can be very powerful to hire the right advisors, to get the project off on the right footing, so the countries can move faster through that development phase and get projects into construction, because it's a long road, and governments, it's difficult for them to sort of find money for a project that may take 10 or 15 years to go from development to electricity on the grid. So I would just say that there's a combination of factors. There's new enthusiasm. We see it with stock prices. We see it with companies coming out of nowhere, and most of them will fail. And a lot of people will be disappointed in stock prices ultimately, but it does show that there's a lot of enthusiasm for nuclear right now, and we need to just channel that, from technology development, which is exciting and interesting, into project delivery, which is a completely different skill set. So I'll stop there, and I look forward to taking questions.
Thank you so much, Paul. So we are gonna go into Q&A. I will start with some questions that I have for each one of you. But I'll after open the floor for the participants if they have any questions. So I'll start with you, Paul, since you were just talking about something that I was interested to know a little bit more. We're talking about these alternative funds or like different funding source. Could you elaborate a bit more on how these various funding sources can be linked effectively to support nuclear or rather clean energy projects initiatives?
Well, I think that, part of the problem in all of these discussions about, the developed world needing to transfer money to we'll say, global south, for lack of better phrasing, there's always that question is to do what? And, when you look at development funding, there's corruption, money disappears. That's reality that no one likes to talk about. Projects don't happen. And so I think that, when and funds are limited. The countries that you're asking to provide funding they have their own needs. And again, the point I made before about geopolitics, that sort of gets in the way of maybe some good ideas as well and some enhanced cooperation that could occur. But I think the bottom line is you want to tie that funding to real projects. And to just send money into a country and hope something good happens, I would never support as a taxpayer. But recognizing that help is needed, I do support. And I think that that's where you create this, okay, the money has to go for these activities. It has to be carefully monitored and controlled. It just can't be sent to a government that you hope they figure it out and money doesn't magically disappear. And so I think it has to be carefully controlled and utilized for very specific things. And as I said, that money is very powerful because the development period, Brianna's on from the IAEA, but the IAEA has, its milestones document, with 3 phases and 19 categories and all these things that you need to do, which I think most people recognize is very well thought out. But that first phase, so many countries are stuck in because they don't know what they're doing. They act like they're starting from a blank piece of paper, and they really need to bring in outsiders that have the experience. The UAE was able to go very quickly um, in 2007, 2008, 2009 because they brought in external people that had experience and they had the funding. Well, if you don't have the funding, how are you going to get the people to help you? So I think these funds, sometimes people say, oh, well, the World Bank doesn't have a lot of money, or the loss and damage fund isn't, it has to go to so many things. But, in the single digit millions to tens of millions of dollars, that's money that has to come from somewhere in the early years. And when you think about getting all the way to the point before you're pouring safety concrete, where you have a construction license, it's hundreds of millions of dollars just to get to that point. And to order long lead items, the number gets even bigger. These are massive projects, and starting them early well with proper advice, that's exactly the kind of money that can unleash all the good things to follow. Because if you don't have a viable project, you're not going to be able to get the financing for construction, whether it's debt or equity. People will look at it as a project like any others and then want to see that you appreciate why nuclear is different and address all those things. You can go fairly quickly if you have the right people. And that's, I think, where a lot of countries struggle and they're stuck in phase 1 forever. And you never see them get to future phases because there is a lot of work that can be done. But as Brianna pointed out in her slides, we have 416 operating plants in the world today, with more under development. We have research reactors all over the world, including in the global south and lots of countries. We know how to do this. It's difficult, but we know how to do it. But then you got to get the people that actually know how to do it. So I'll stop there.
Appreciate, Paul. I think it was interesting. You mentioned a lot about in the beginning of your answer about the role of government and like the importance of having tied to projects and the different needs that some regions have. And I now want to ask to Brianna. So, given that different needs that exists around the different regions of the world, how do you see international agencies enhance funding mechanisms for climate action, but also to make sure there is some more equitable distribution?
Thanks, Lucy. Yeah. I think actually this follows some of what Paul was saying pretty closely, because I do think that there's a huge need to support countries that are asking for this help, and so that we don't stall out in the beginning stages. And I think that there's a lot that international organizations can do to kind of facilitate this process, because so much can be done from sharing lessons learned and case studies, and not just as only a playbook for this is exactly how you should do it, but hey, here's something that worked here, didn't work here. It's possible to take pieces and to learn it and to apply that to an individual context. So I think we can do a lot of that. And I think that from an international organization perspective, that capacity building role is really important. And I think that at a project development level, that can have some impact. So I think so the IAEA does lots of work on this. We provide technical assistance to our member states on a lot of different levels, everything from energy planning models, that with or without nuclear energy, but as kind of just an option there in the modeling software, to everything from, okay, you want to pursue this topic, here's how you build out a regulator, here's what you might be looking at in terms of building a workforce and operators, and here are considerations you need to have. You need to be very transparent with stakeholders and engage with the public on this topic, and create open forums for communication. So that can take a lot of different forms, but I think, I mean, to kind of package it all up nicely, that kind of capacity building and technical assistance is incredibly important. And I think something that an international organization is especially well suited to do. There are other tasks that other organizations and other pieces and the private sector, frankly, can, in my opinion, do much better. But from the UN perspective, I think building that knowledge and helping countries design bankable projects based off of their priorities and the reality that exists in their country. I think that's particularly important for an industry like nuclear, but I think can, excuse me, apply pretty broadly to, I think that's the role that an international organization can play well for any clean energy technology.
Right. No, I appreciate that. So I'll pass to Shaibu. So we talked about, Brianna was just talked about the role of international organizations, and you mentioned a lot the public and private collaborations, which is a very important for other types of support that these projects need, as Brianna was mentioning. So based on your experience with transmission, because we talked about the construction of lands for energy production, but we know that part of the infrastructure project needed to energy is also the transmission upgrades and smart grids and so on. So what do you believe are key ingredients for having a successful public and private partnerships and financing for the transmission upgrades that are needed for regions that are very renewably have a large portion of renewable power. So what do you think would be essential ingredients for a successful public and private partnership for these transmission upgrades? You are muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay. I think that's a very important question in the sense that we know that the transmission grid or the power grid that we have currently in the US started in the late 1800s, and transmission lines or assets have the lifespan, right? So I think what will help both stakeholders in the private sector and the public sector is a collaboration of knowledge sharing, where the technical folks usually do not get much involved in policy and regulation or even into politics. But the key driver of every technology or innovation goes back to politics and policy. So what will actually help is the technocrats getting very close to the policymakers and explaining into detail in clear language for them to understand that the grid that we have now needs an upgrade. We need to modernize the grid to be able to allow expand to expand for demand that is growing. And as Paul mentioned, he talked about data centers increasing demand. So due to the high increase of AI adoption, right? So in order to catch up, the the high increase of demand, we need to modernize the grid. But to allow policy support for modernization of the grid, there has to be the collaboration between engineers, explaining that the transmission line that was built 50 years ago on average can last for 50 to 80 years. And so if it is getting closer to 80 years, should we wait to allow the transmission line to retain, or we have to expand it? Or there are a lot of innovations that are there. We can keep the transmission line, but we can change the cable, the transmission conductors. So this has to be explained in detail with collaboration. I hope that answers the question. You are muted, I think, Alice.
I did that now. I think it's interesting to see that in all three perspectives here, we can back to the importance of policy, government engagement, and all of that. So I think that's an underlining strong message that we're bringing in this here. So for now, I would like to open the floor for questions. I see Hajia has your hands up. I don't know if you want to come out of mute and share your question. Okay, so I see Timothy also have his hands up. Do you want to ask your questions? Come out of mute.
Hello everyone. Actually, it's my question, not Timothy, but I can't see any hands option on my phone. That's why he helped me. So I'm Razia Sultana and I'm from Bangladesh. I have actually two questions. First one is about nuclear clean energy. That's what talking about Paul. So my question is, nuclear green energy is really a great way to produce electricity and reduces fossil fuels, but uh, in developing countries like Bangladesh, who have limited resources, how can they start this uh, in our country? And the second question is about it's about actually if we're talking about lobbying, it's a great way to convince our political leaders and also international investors who can invest in our country uh, to uh, to starting renewable energy and reduce fossil fuels. So how can we convince them? Because they want something profit. So how can we convince them to start in our country? Thank you.
Thank you. The question was for you, Paul.
Sure. Thanks for the questions. I think for Bangladesh, you're already building nuclear reactors. We'll see how that goes. But that's been done under a government-to-government relationship with Russia. So there are benefits and consequences with doing that. It's probably inappropriate for me to comment further. But sometimes for countries that aren't able to do it themselves, for financial resources or otherwise, I mean, if you don't have the technology, it has to come from somewhere anyway. So, building a relationship with a government or governments, plural, can be a way to provide the technology and financing and other support that you may not otherwise be able to do yourself. In terms of attracting people to come to the country, I mean, I think you made a great point in your question of investors need to make money. There's no divine right of financing. It's not like you say, I want this project and money falls from the sky. So what that really means is you have to create a good investment environment. And, you look at every country has to make decisions that are right for its country. And so the answer isn't going to be the same for everyone, but you look at Is it easy or hard to do business in my country? Is the rule of law honored? Is there corruption? There's lots of things that go into whether or not people might want to invest. But then, when you get into the electricity space, the bigger and more complicated the project, the more you need dedicated offtake. Every nuclear plant, we have 94 operating in the United States right now, many more were built. Every single plant, when it was built in a regulated market. Investors do not want to invest billions of dollars into a project that takes 7 to 10 years for development and construction, if not more, and then compete in the market. Nuclear is base load power. You want to know that if I build it, I can sell it all the time. So you have to think about what investors want to see. It doesn't mean you have to do everything they're asking for, but at the same time, you have to be aware of it. And I think the way you ask the question shows that you're thinking along those lines. Countries can create special economic zones with special tax treatment and all these things to encourage investment into the country. There are models how to do this, and the formulas are pretty well known, but the country has to want to do it, and that gets into, in the case of nuclear energy specifically, it's not easy. Do you want to do it? If you want to do it, we know how to figure it out. But sometimes people want some magical solution. That's not going to happen. And a lot of times in doing projects like this, in the mega project space where it's nuclear or otherwise, you got to dismiss all the bad ideas more than finding out the next great idea, because sometimes the way to do this is fairly simple and straightforward, albeit you're still doing a very complicated thing. And again, just recognizing that if you can't finance the project, nuclear or otherwise, there is no project. So you've got to be, from the very beginning, thinking of how lenders and investors will view your project and what you can do to create a more attractive environment.
Thank you, Paul. I was trying to see who else had their hands up, and I accidentally moved my avatar, so it shows that I need to learn more about this platform. But I was able to see that Chums, I think, I apologize if I'm butchering your name, have your hands up. You are on mute if you're asking a question. No.
There's also Andrea has said.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, do we have to start worrying that some of, like, the majority of the funds that governments allocate to research will goes now to AI research? Because I had like a conversation couple of days ago with one of my
Looks like somebody,
colleagues.
Andrea has a question. Do we want to see if maybe she can come off mute?
Paul, James was asking her question. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything though.
Oh, were you hearing anything, Brianna and Chaibo?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could hear
Yes,
them.
I heard Shams. I think she was asking a question about funding for research that, in terms of environmental, is it possible that the funding will go for AI research instead of environment?
Yes, it's a worry that I have actually, because countries are not allocated enough to environmental studies and research, and now we kind of start worrying that even that small amount is going to be allocated to AI research. So I just want to know your comment regarding that. And my second question is regarding that. I don't want to say it's in ignorance sometimes from the funding parties, but when they like put fund into scientific research, either related to environment or anything else, they are like waiting for immediate results sometimes, but they don't understand that the nature of science and research is that you may expect having no immediate results or sometimes a failure as a result, but it is still a result in itself. So I don't know, like nowadays, are these funding parties becoming more aware about this fact, and is it making them putting more fund into the scientific research, either related to environment and so on? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chams. I know, Paul, you were not able to hear Chams' question, so I was wondering if Shaibu or Brianna, you want to take on that?
Okay, I think I can talk a bit brief about the research funding for environment and AI. I think what actually drives funding would also depend on how important the subject is in the current instant. So currently, what is actually the buzzing word in all publications or in the media is about AI. How AI is highly in demand right now. So I will not be surprised if a lot of funding allocations are allocated to AI as compared to environment. As you mentioned, environmental research does not provide or produce immediate results, but with AI, I think there's always going to be a short-term benefit. So it is something that would have to the solution I see is having the environment research scientists writing strong proposals for funding, but there's nothing much that can be done with the AI group. I'm not sure if Brianna have something to add.
No, I think in the interest of time, I stand with your answer. I think that it tends to be something that's gotten a lot of attention and frankly a lot of money in terms of interest in AI companies and components. So I think that is probably a trend that yeah we're going to see in terms of government allocation, at least in the short term. So I stand behind your much more comprehensive answer.
Okay, thank you. I think Andrea has a question.
Yeah, so this would need to be our last question because we are on time already. So Andrea, can you come off mute and ask your question? Andrea Balcasar, can you come off mute? Okay. All right. Well, if in the meantime Andrea can write a question, we think, but I just want to thank the speakers for Brianna, Shaibu, and Paul for accepting to participate. I do want to ask you to close with one message would you give related to the topics that we are talking, but to the young people that are here, exciting to support clean energy solutions for a sustainable future, and that the finance aspect is sometimes either very tricky for the deployment of these solutions in their regions or countries, or and so a short message that you would have with the topic of finance in mind for the young people in the room. So yeah, maybe start with Paul.
Thanks. I would just say that this is a very interdisciplinary space. There's lots of different things that have to come together. It's very much national planning that brings in lots of different considerations. So there's multiple opportunities. You don't need to be an engineer to be a part of this. I've had a long career without being an engineer, and I think that having different skill sets and the ability to bring them all together to create viable policies and then projects is very important, because you're not going to get the money unless you do all of that. And so either that has to happen in order to get the money. In order to get the money, you need to be thinking about that at the beginning planning stages, so that you have something that people might be worth interested in from a debt and an investment perspective. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Shaibu?
Okay. Okay, I think to end up, I would just say that it is important that we all recognize the role of each party in terms of public government, and then also we as individuals. But in order to be up to date with the current dispensation, it is very important to be to have like to be a generalist specialist, in the sense that it's good to have knowledge about, even though you might not be an engineer, as Paul is saying, have knowledge about power marketing, about accounting, finance, and then also having knowledge about interconnection, how things play out. So that is very beneficial. For me, I am an engineer. I don't know much about specialist. That's all I'll say.
Sure, I'll keep it short. I think exactly what you've done today is a fantastic step in the right direction. I think coming with curiosity and learning from experts and trying to understand the pieces of this puzzle that you don't understand is the most important part. I think this echoes what Paul and Shaibu have said, is that there's a lot of pieces here and no one's expected to know all of it. I think reaching out to people who you think are doing interesting work in this space, and coming in and hearing what other people have to say, listening to different viewpoints, and trying to understand how the energy sector fits together with finance. So I think coming here and listening today, I think was a great first step in that. But I think in general, coming with curiosity is really the most important thing.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone that participated. Thank you, Brianna, Shaibu, and Paul, again, for your time and for the insights that you were able to provide today. And I hope everyone that was here learned something, and also will leave with some food for thought. And please feel free to reach out to IMC if you want to know more about the organization, and also if you want to engage and discuss more in topics such as this one. So enjoy the rest of your virtual COP. I hope you. Yes, yes. Oh yeah, we are all working together collaboratively to find the like to implement the best solutions, and working with Yango Energy Group has been I think an incredible journey. So INC is always happy to support making sure those sort of discussions become a little bit more mainstream for young people across the globe. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.